Everyone. My name is Azadeh Dasmalchi. I'm originally from Iran, grew up in Dubai, and came here in Canada since 2008. Do you want to go with the introduction or should I continue?
You can continue. Go ahead.
Thank you. I study my bachelor, master, PhD, all in biomedical engineering. And biomedical is something we study some medical courses, and we also start some engineering courses, and then some computer science as well. And then we combine all of them together to able to build some medical device like a stethoscope that can hear, or the novel technology that right now we are working on it, which is the watch on the wrist, but it can measure all vital signs.
So Azadeh, kids, I wanted to tell you, she is actually also the co-founder and CEO of a company called Vital Tracer. And she's also studying. She's a PhD student, as she said, in Ottawa University. She's also one of the top 25 women of influence in Canada. Okay. So besides studying, she's also running her company, and she started a company almost 11 years back. And she has not given up no matter what comes in her way. So, the reason we are here today is because I'm the founder of Coding and More, and we teach AI to children as young as 8. And we want to sort of see applications of AI in different fields. This month, we decided to focus on health. So we had Azadeh here, and she's going to tell you all the cool things that she's doing using technology in Vital Tracer. Azadeh, will you tell them why you chose this? What exactly does your company do? And then we'll follow up with the next questions.
Yeah? Sure. Yeah.
One more thing, kids, anytime you have a question, please put up your hand and she'll be very happy to answer your questions. Okay?
Yes. So when I was 7 years old, my elder brother asked me that, what do you want to do when you grown up? And I told him that I want to be a very famous scientist like Edison, who develop and who innovate some very useful technology like power and lamp. And it's like a daily use for everyone, not only, for example, rich people. So I always wanted to be scientist. And he asked me, how can I do that? I said, okay, I will study some major in terms of science or novel things so I can create something very cool and I will be famous. So besides being famous or rich, I always want to help most of the people around the world, if not all, to make the world better place. And I want to help everyone to make their life easier. But I grew up a lot. And then when I was 20 years old, my dad diagnosed with a very high blood pressure. So his medical doctor prescribed him a medication and asked him to use a device goes around the arm and inflate and deflate to measure blood pressure. But he never used it because he found it's a bit complicated to work, hard to install, and when it's pushed a lot, it's hurt. So he doesn't like it. And at the same time, I start my study in University of Ottawa at that time for my master in 2010. And I said, you know what? It's a good idea to work on a new device, which doesn't have a cuff, can wear it very easily, and it do it everything automatically. But it looks like Cinderella's magic fairy. But I start studying lots of books, lots of papers, or lots of journals, and I find that if I can have some optical sensor like light, and then if I can have a magic box like AI that we are using it, then I might able to do it. So long story short, it took 11 years to make it happen. And we have a lots of very hard day. There are lots of mean people to talk with me very harshly. I cried a lot, but that's okay. I find it because I want to make a technology to make parents, like father and mother, live longer and independent. And at the end of point, I find that, you know what, I really want to help everyone. Maybe if we have this technology for every single people, we can predict some disease like even COVID before it getting really serious. Because I lost my dad, unfortunately, a couple of years after that. So I lost him 5 years ago. And I wish that I had this technology. So this technology could predict his diagnosing at the early stage. And he can live with us, and he can live longer and independent and healthier.
What are the things that a Vital Tracer, it's like a watch, right? It's like an Apple Watch or a Fitbit.
That's right. Yes.
So what are the things that you try to monitor, and how does the AI part come in?
Yes. So it is measuring heart rate. So the number of the heartbeat, right? And then when the heart beat, it push the blood outside. So it measure the pressure inside the vessel. And then we are also, when we are breathing, number of breath, which is called respiratory rate. And then we, the heart transferred the oxygen inside the body. So we are also measuring the level of oxygen in our blood. And also we can measure skin temperature. So we can detect if the patient has a fever as well. So it is 5 parameters that it call it vital signs. Because if there is something happening inside our body and it doesn't have a symptom and we don't know, but it's not working properly, at least one of these 5, something's change abnormality. It goes very high or very low.
So when you build this,
Rushil has question.
Okay, go ahead, Rushil.
So I just wanted to ask, so all the things that you said that it measures the heart rate or the skin temperature. So does this mean all the diseases that we have is correlated with heartbeat? Because I think a person with anxiety will tend to have much higher heartbeat as compared to the normal person. So how will this be justified in that case?
Yes. So I can't tell exactly like all the disease definitely gonna do it, but this is what I read as well, that all the disease relevant to at least one parameters. For example, anxiety and stress. That's a really good point. When we have anxiety and stress, our heart is beeping, pumping so hard. So our heart rate goes really fast and high. And then when we don't have a stress, it goes down. So if we track in a day and week and months, we can say that when it goes really high and when it goes really normal range. But at the same time, heart rate has another parameters called heart rate variability. So like the amount that heart take to pump, so goes from zeros to full, zeros to full, okay? So if it goes really fast or if the beat is changed, the variation of each signal would be different, the time difference. So they call it variety. So if the variety is different, we can find the level of stress, if the patient has a really high stress or normal stress. But that's a really good question.
So I wanted to ask you, when you built a technology like this, in order to use AI, you need good data, right? To
True.
ensure that the prediction is happening, and you have to ensure that the data is well balanced, is not biased. It's covering the different genders, it's covering the different races. How did you sort of manage getting the data and keep it unbiased, so to say?
Right. So we start with a small population, but in AI, if you can have more data, it's better, less biased. But in terms of, we know how specific parameters that make it very biased. So we understand that totally we have to have at least same amount of people in terms of male versus female. We need to have the different people in different countries, which is different race. We need to have the different in a different height, different weight. So like fat people versus thin people, I can say. And different weight, different height, different age, like very young age versus very, very old people. And even in the range of old people, different, like 65, 70, 80, 90, they have a different disease. So like different parameters of the blood pressure change really fast. And then also we find recently that skin color is really affecting by optical sensor or light. So we involve different, we are right now recruiting volunteers on a different skin colors to test on their ways to find it.
That's really cool. So when the optical sensor works differently with different skin color, does the engineering change or does a prediction change? Like, or I mean, do you put the sort of balancing factor in the algorithm?
Right, both actually. Even for making a signal processing, making a detection, we doing hardware, which is inside the watch, and then we do a software, which is the AI code. And even before going to AI, we have a data processing or signal pre-processing to make the signal clear, less noisy, more good quality, we call it. So these are all the parameters that we need to consider to make it signal very smooth, very clear to go inside the machine learning, because we say that if there is a junk in, then junk out. So we want to make that we have a good input.
Azadeh, I also want you to tell the children about how, though we have spent 11 years developing this technology, and as we spoke about it, technology is constantly changing, right?
Right.
So how do you ensure that in spite of the changing technology, the device that you have made stays up to date and relevant for today?
Right. So we have, again, we can divide the technology in two parts, hardware and software. In terms of hardware, it's not that much oftenly change in terms of optical sensor or the band or the frame, but we can always, as like other bigger players like Apple, Samsung, they always have a one new version in terms of hardware for each year. So that's not something that is happening even every year. It might be every 2-3 years. That's the reality. But in terms of software, you're totally correct that even if we have more data, we can have a more accurate result. That's why there is a one way, there are a couple of ways, but one way that we are doing, we call it online computing or cloud computing. So if you put your AI algorithm on online, send all the database as an input that you get online, and then you get the online output. So you always, every single second and minute, you put more data, it's train and validate and test more and give you a accurate. So this means that you are always updating your algorithm in a real time. And then meanwhile, if you find another like optimization method, like genetic algorithms that you want to add it, it's like a Lego that you can add any part more, which is totally fine, and you can do it.
Kids, I hope that are following what Azadeh and I are talking about. If there's something you don't follow, please jump in and ask, because this is for you guys. I also wanted to ask you one more thing, Azadeh. Can you also clarify to them how is a medical wearable device different from one of these popular ones like, most people wear?
Yeah, Apple, Fitbit, Samsung. Yes, they are not medical device because they don't have a health ministry regulations. It means that the value that they give you is not as accurate as medical device. This means that if you go to your medical doctor and say that this is the number that I get for my heart rate and it's very different each day, do I have any kind of disease and can you diagnose me in the early stage? And if the medical say that, okay, which technology you use to measure your heart rate? If you say that I use a different mobile app or Apple and Samsung Fitbit data, they say that no, they are not accurate. So we don't trust those data. But we want to have trustable technology that medical doctor could get it. To do that, we need to go through a lots of Ministry of Health regulatory that it's take around 2 years. Now we need to test our technology in hospital on a real patient with the nurse, with the medical doctor. So it's a very long process and it's also very hard to get those certifications. So we want to be as accurate as medical device in the hospital.
Azadeh, I remember you were telling me that, the way you test your device is by, monitoring your heart rate with the wearable device, and at the same time, the nurse is doing it with the physical device to ensure that, they are matching as much as possible, right?
That's correct.
And the other interesting thing I found that you had shared with me last week was that you said that the wearable device could actually predict if you had COVID, but because of the certifications, you're not able to use it in the market. Would you like to share a bit about that with the kids?
Yes. So so we had one example how we can diagnose or predict stress at the early stage. But even for COVID, I have an example. So if the person got COVID and doesn't have a fever, but the lung is fighting with the virus, and when the lung start fighting, there are a couple of parameters may change and the person might not even have a cough, but because the lung is working very hard in terms of fighting with virus, it cannot breathing completely in and out. So there is a less oxygen in the whole body and in our blood. So our oxygen level dropped gradually, very slowly, that we didn't understand. But when it gets very severe, then it's really late to diagnose and they go to the ICU and they may pass out. But if we could predict oxygen level in the blood that we are doing every single day, 3 or 5 times per day, while the person is awake, while the person is sleeping at night, the difference between day and night number. And then we can see that in a week, it start graduating more and more, so we can alert a notification to the subject that you may need to see doctor or go to COVID test because your parameter is going really low and it's dangerous.
So today, the way that the wearable device works is that it gives the person who's wearing it the notification. And then in the future, it would be something that even doctors could have access to, to sort of track and be preventive.
That's true. And even in spaces like hospitals and senior homes, that we have lots of patients at the same time, they could alert and send the notification to the nursing station. So then in a very big building, they can understand which apartment or room is in the danger, so they can go and check with the medical device and see the subject and ask some question to make sure that the subject, the patient is working, I mean, he or she is healthy, or if there is any problem, goes to the hospital.
Kids, do you all have any question? Because I have one more question for Azadeh, but I want to see whether anybody has any questions so far. And Rushil has one more.
Actually, it's not a question. I am just curious that how actually we are using machine learning in this medical sciences, because what I believe is everybody's bodies react differently for different diseases. How are we charting or pipelining all the people present on earth into something in an algorithm that if this is the prediction, this is going to be the answer? So
Beautiful and smart question. Actually, that we are personalizing each algorithm for each subject because we have a cloud computing. So let's say that we have user number 1, 2, 3 to 1 million, right? So the algorithm has input output always for one subject. And we know that, for example, Azade is wearing is a user number 1. And then they can understand what is Azade normal heart rate, Azade normal blood pressure. And you know what? My heart rate compared with the normal people is very high, but the shape of the signal is very normal. So I went to the couple of times to the emergency for other issues, and they say that, oh, your heart is very high. So mine in the normal position is 120. And if I get that stress without any activity, it goes to 220, okay, which is very, very high. And normally people use medications for that. And then they send me with the ECG technology, three days continuous monitoring to say that whether I'm okay or not. And I told them, look, this is my normal body. I know it because I have a technology measure it every day. Don't worry. And they see the signal is okay. So they say that you feel okay. Okay, then it's your normal body. We are trying to personalize the medicine for each subject by this. So we say that this is Azade normal heartbeat, which is 120. So if in some cases for a week, my heart rate goes to 75, I put a question on myself, whether I have a very relaxed day and didn't do any work, my homework, or maybe something's wrong with me and I need to check with doctor. Or if it goes lots more, then same wise. And that's why we are doing it. And we say that another way for calibration, maybe for a first day or for a first week, you need to put your medical informations in the watch, means your weight, your height, your age, your gender. So then it goes to your normal category. And then at the same time, if you have a blood pressure or pulse oximeter, you can add those numbers as well, but otherwise that's work as well. Did I convince you by the chance?
yeah, so basically you said that it's a customized algorithm, right? Just like how
Right.
recommendation systems also work.
Exactly.
Um, okay. Yeah.
We have another question from Funi.
So where do you sell these products, and in which country do you sell them in?
Oh, beautiful. Unfortunately, we don't sell them yet because we haven't get the Ministry of Health approval yet. So we cannot sell our technology as a medical device. But we are selling our technology right now as a is, like it's a prototype, it's not commercialized yet, only to medical doctors and professor in university if they want to have signals only, not the numbers data on their own research. And we are selling in Canada and US only researchers and not other countries yet, because we want to make sure that we are working with them, they get the very good signals, very good results, and at the same time help us to get the more database to go for Ministry of Health approval.
That's excellent.
Thank you.
Sorry. Any more questions, kids? Everyone is very quiet. Azadeh, what are the other applications of AI that you saw in health before you chose this? I know you had a specific reason for getting into Vital Tracer, But what are some of the other uses of technology in health that you could maybe expose the kids to?
Oh, that's good. I believe that maybe they should just start with the easy technology, like a step by step. So I know that like there are some online open source devices that they can buy it and build it, even as a 3D printing. I know that you can do a 3D printing for building a stethoscope. Or for building, there are some electronics that selling the open source medical devices like thermometer that you can sold and start working. Or Raspberry Pi has other technology that you can build it easily and then apply different codes on it, like for heart rate monitoring or even SpO2. I mean, oxygen level in the body. So there are some other parameters that they are more look like Legos that you can put it, and then you can connect it with your computer and apply different codes. And Raspberry Pi are one of those companies that they are selling. But of course, I'm pretty sure that there are much more variety of the brands.
Thank you so much.
My
Anybody
pleasure.
else have any questions? You know, I want you to also share, Azadeh, what you shared with me the other day, that, you know, how today you use the vital tracer, you know, for certain parameters, but now it can be also used in, I mean, how you innovate the same science to go for pregnant women, etc.
Oh, right. Yes, yes. So while we were doing the watch on patients for measuring all vital signs, including blood pressure, we find that it changed the form factor. Instead of watch goes patch on the chest, we might go able to measure for newborn's baby who has a problem with their heart or had a surgery. So when they are in an ICU, that's okay. They have a lot of technology on them and they are very accurate. But after a couple of days that they feel a bit better, they go to the general floor, and then their mommies and parents need to change their diapers and do everything. And they are at least 6-7 wires on them. So it's very hard for them to change a diaper, do breastfeeding, or hug them, do skin to skin. So if there is only one patch on them and no wires, so makes everything much more easier, especially if they do any like a surgery. Hugging parents make them easier and faster to recovery. And if you scared to touch them because lots of wires and you don't want to disconnect those wires, then even being in a hospital makes longer. And we find that this technology also could work with the people who got Alzheimer. So they forgot who they are, where they are, and it's on their it's like a necklace, but it's patch attached to the skin. So the caregiver could find them, that where is their location, because it has a GPS, and also see that if their health is okay, because we could detect fall detection as well, to see that if something's happened to them, they can go directly to that place and find them.
That's excellent. So the I think Dashi has a question. She says, can you share some information where we can read about AI for Alzheimer's patients?
Oh, that's a good question. I will Google it and then send back to you, because that's not my expert area, but we are working with the 2 researchers to predict Alzheimer at the early stage using AI and wearable technology.
That's cool. Rushan, you had a question?
Yes. So the question is, if I keep on putting all my personal information into a device, is it safe? All my medical information?
Yeah. In term of safety, we have to get some Health Canada certification as well, that they call it cyber security, to avoid any hacks. And also personal information confidentiality. So all the data that will goes on a cloud will make anonymously. So if your name's gonna be user number 10 or user some codes, so we don't have any your personal information, but when you don't have your name and date of birth or only name, we have only signals and other informations that which is not confidential. But in the other hand, in terms of confidentiality, if you have a Instagram, if you have a Facebook, if you have a phone connected to internet, I can say that you don't have any personality and privacy.
That's true. Azadin, also, isn't it true that because you're creating this device in Canada where you have stringent laws and rules, when you collect this data, it's going to be confidential because you're user number one. Are you also bound by certain laws to ensure that this information not sold to third party?
Oh yeah, we even don't own the data. So all the data goes to save on hospital cloud. So we don't have access directly to data. The only things that we can use it are algorithm in their cloud. So it goes input and output when our algorithm just gets more accurate. So we don't have the data, it just goes in and out and that's it. So yes, that's another good question.
There are enough good laws, sort of protecting the consumer, at least in Canada, because I understand that worldwide we don't have, universal laws which are educating the people about data privacy and
Right.
b about protecting rights.
True, that's true. That's why we start with local, which is Canada, and then move to US. Usually each country or a couple of countries, they have a one regulatory that's our make our life much more harder. It means that we have to get one certification, even sometimes in Canada and other United States as well. Each province and state have its own regulatory and certification. So we need to get for privacy information, we have a one regulatory in Quebec, one in Ontario, and then we have a one in federal and another for other province. And in a state, California has its own rules, New York has another, others have also other regulatory. That makes our progress very slow, but that's all it is. We have no other choice to go and make it shortcut.
That's great. Does anybody else have any questions? No? But, thank you so much, Azadeh. This was really, really very insightful. I hope that, people have understood a bit about how AI is being used in healthcare. My idea was also for them to see that, how when you have an existing technology, you can innovate on it and build on it. You don't have to start from scratch. People who are in academia, like Azadeh, they don't just keep things private. They keep it open source so that other researchers can build with it and collaborate.
Right.
The third great learning that I feel is that you know um, use technology which is for social impact.
True.
Be mindful of how data is being collected so that you know how your predictions are. Is there anything else I missed out that you think that you would want the children to sort of think back and just reflect on, because I know it's a little bit of a heavy topic for children?
Yes, and something not AI, but it's smart and intelligent, that you need to learn that there is always lots of good days, but lots more hard days. And you need to be patient and believe in yourself that you can do it. And if someone is very mean and unpolite, that you say that you're female and you cannot do code, don't listen to that bad voices and negative signals.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you mentioned that. That yes, everything is not hunky dory, but you just keep at it. Believe in yourself, and there are enough good people to help you too. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
My
So,
pleasure.
uh, Okay, kids, would you all like to, switch on your camera once? Oh, Aisha has switched on her camera once. And say thank you to Azadeh. If you all have any last minute questions, statements, please
Do you
go
want to,
ahead.
do you want to take a one group picture together?
Would you like to do that?
Yes, I love to.
Ishita, would you do that for us, please?
Sure, I'll just do that. 1 second.
Leil, would you like to switch on your camera, sweetheart?
Yeah, Tina. Right, everyone is here. Smile, cheese.
Done.
Like
I've taken one.
Big heart.
Oh, heart. Okay, let's do it hard. Nice.
Done. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me today. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
Wonderful.
You too.
Bye, thank you.
My pleasure.